Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm going to throw out a theory, right? This isn't me saying this is what anybody else is saying. This isn't me claiming to talk for anyone. This is a theory based on kind of what I've read, what I've observed, of where I think some people are going with this. Because I can go, I think, every single day, and sometimes have, with stories, with history, with evidence, with suggestions, with things out there that show what works and what doesn't work in the comic industry. I've been doing these numbers that show trends and show how certain things work. It's not a particularly mysterious picture. I think the summary to all this stuff is what you probably suspect is happening is actually what's happening. Usually with some variance, and it's always true that, it's like Venditti's Hawkman. I like that series. I thought it was awesome. I really appreciated all bits of it, and I thought it was a great story, but at the same time, it was also Hawkman. I was under no illusions it was selling like 300,000 copies, and I don't know who in the world would think that. I know there are some, but by and large, I suspect most people are looking at this stuff going, yeah, it's hey, that's much worse than I thought, or maybe that's much better than I thought, but it's still along the same lines of what they thought. And I did this. This is a whole other kind of side drain that I'm getting into, where I went and I downloaded Primer, which is a DC young adult comic graphic novel, and it seems to be the one that is successful. And what's weird about it is, as an outlier, when I was looking at the charts and I looked at what was going on in the U.S. and I was looking at what was going on in other countries, and then I looked at the way the sales were holding up. This little book Primer, which I will freely admit, I missed my attention. I did not notice it. I didn't pay attention to it. It kind of slipped right under the radar, and it came up on the list. I'm like, huh. And then I saw it starting to show up on the Japan bestseller list and other places. And I'm like, oh, there's that book again. And then it just so happened I had taken my kids to a Barnes and Noble, and I'm off doing something else. And I come back, and my older daughter, who went off in search of new One Piece titles, One Piece books, a volume she didn't have, was reading this Primer book, and she's like, "Hey, this is good." And she's reading it, and I walk over there and I look at it, and so I'll do a video. I want to review this book, and I know it's completely outside of the audience of this channel, but it when you look at it, it is not surprising why it's doing well. And keep in mind, it's doing well with the audience it's chasing. It's doing well with young adult, kid type audiences. It's doing very successful within that category. I am sure it is not doing very successful with like 30-year-old, 35-year-old men, who are lifelong readers of the X-Men. But when you look at it, I would say that even if you are one of those people who loves the X-Men, I'm one of those people who loves the X-Men, you can, I think, very quickly understand why it does well. The art is, nothing to write home about, but it's solid, it's clean, colors are bright and, probably appeal to a younger audience. Story seems relatively simple, has a reasonable amount of action in the book, and it looks pretty much, as you'd expect. It looked decent. But what's curious about it is how then, okay, so if you're successful with one thing, what should you do? You should try and clone that thing 800 times. But the comic industry, and a lot of people, the publishers, the people in marketing, the editorial, they seem to purposefully want to do the opposite of that, opposite of what is successful. Now, here's where when I say things like this in the comments, oftentimes I get the response of, well, that's because they're pursuing their agendas and they don't care what people think. And I would counter with this. Wouldn't it be better to enact your agenda with success? Like, you can sneak your agenda into things. Maybe you have to be a little bit more clever about it, but you can sneak your, sneaky agenda stuff in, and you generally, if you want it to go over well, you should want your, the things that your agenda to be successful. You should want sales. You should want dollars to be spent on your books. If you're trying to sneak in your agenda and you're trying to do that on the back of an unselling, piece of crap that nobody wants, you are eventually somebody's going to show up and be like, "Hey, you get out of here. You're wasting our money." Eventually, that does happen. And it has happened. It's happened at DC. It's happened at Marvel. There's, even very, very well connected people. At some point, things come to an end, and it's like, okay, you just can't sell anything, no matter how cool your stuff is. People like to use the expression "failing upward." There is a cliff that does happen. You eventually the ground vanishes underneath you, and people move on to the next shiny thing. And the thing that saves you is if you've got some successful books under your belt. I mean, the reality is why Bendis has continued to get good contracts and do things is that he had a long track record of selling books. He was at Marvel, and he put up big numbers for books, and that worked. And that's why they let him, do the things he's doing. It's why they let him do Riri Williams. It's why they let him do Naomi. It's why they gave a lot of money at DC and put him on way more books than anyone reasonably should have put anybody on. But because he had some numbers to back it up. Uh, but this theory that I have, it is that there is this kind of built-in urge that exists within comics to do the opposite of what's popular. And what I mean by that is when confronted with sales numbers, when confronted with clear evidence of what works, there's almost this counterculture rebellion that in a personality that people just can't help themselves. They want to do the opposite. It's like they're shown the nice easy path. And there's cartoons. You ever seen this where like there's a fork in the road, and like one path has like sunshine and flowers and like there's bunnies jumping up and down. The other one is like a dark forest with bats and like sinister red eyes. And the person coming the path's like, let's do this other one. Let's go the direction of the murder things. That seems like a good idea. And some of that may be stupidity, sure, but I think if you talk to enough people in comics, there is one common thread that you hear a lot, which is I consider myself punk rock, and I find that there's two types of people that say that. I've done the interview. If you listen to the interview with Sean Gordon Murphy, he had a punk rock streak in him. He did some books, very counterculture, but at the same time, he wanted those to be successful. He wanted people to buy them. It was like I'm not just going to make, I'm not going to just go live punk rock in a corner and starve. I actually would like to feed myself while enjoying this culture. And then there's a second group that I think they don't really know what punk rock is. When you talk to Murphy or you talk to there's other writers and artists and others who I think have actually listened to some of this stuff. Their knowledge of punk rock does not begin and end with the Clash. It's like they've got a little bit more in the arsenal than that, and it's I think for those people, they're in love with the idea of punk rock. They don't really know what it means, but they're in love with the idea. And part of that idea is, reject authority, do the opposite of, when somebody tells you something, when there's a clear path laid out in front of you, do the opposite. Because if you're doing the opposite, then you're a true artist. You're not a real artist unless you're rebelling against something. And if you're rebelling against something, then you're pure. You've got this pure vision, pure spirit, whatever. And you are, you're doing you're doing, I would say you're doing God's work, but that goes against punk rock culture too. No, you're doing, you're being true to yourself. And if you're going along with, the authority or, facts or profits or things like that, then you're some kind of sellout. You're not creative anymore. And part of it, there's a little indication because I got a note I got a DM from an artist who's been watching my numbers videos and saying, hey, it's really cool stuff. I really like it. Feels like there's a lot of good lessons in there. I feel kind of dirty watching it because it feels very corporate. And I thought that was a kind of a funny comment, but it makes sense, right? So this is why it's a theory. This is, again, not me claiming this is truth or what it's just, this is me trying to make sense of this weird world. It feels like there's this built-in desire to want to rebel. And the rebellion does not come from any place of sanity or logic or facts. It's coming from just a desire to do the opposite of what you're told. And so I think back to tons of conversations I have where there's this like almost schizophrenic behavior that I've had from creators at times where they're very jealous of the success of others. Speaking of Bendis, back in 2012 when Bendis was very successful at Marvel, there was a lot of kind of really jealousy of him getting what he wants. Hey, maybe you know what? An even better example is Mark Millar, who got his Netflix deal. And even today, you can go and you can like look in the archives at CBR and Bleeding Cool, and you can see articles written of people who are really like on one hand they're oh, it's amazing, good for Mark to get this deal. He doesn't deserve it. He's a sellout. Like very, very strange, including written by some people who are absolutely current writers of Deadpool. I mean, current comic writers today. Sorry, you can see these very weird articles where it's like they recognize the success. Feels like there's a lot of jealousy in the success, and also this that's never going to be me. I'm never going to submit to the man. I would never. The day I have to get a lawyer and a contract, that's corporate talk. Blech. And I'll try and find the clip. I probably will not. I'll forget that I'm saying this bit when I finally go to process this video. But Kelly Sue DeConnick does this interview, and in the interview, no, it's not the one you're thinking of. In the interview, she makes a comment about kind of urging people to go get an agent and to get like a lawyer to look over contracts. And she's just suggesting like that's a good thing to do. And in her pitch, she's like, I know a lot of you don't want to do this. I know a lot of you think that's super lame and you don't want to ever have to deal with a lawyer or an agent or any of that kind of stuff, but it's good for you. You really should do it. And it's like, huh. I mean, she's right. Absolutely. She's absolutely right. But it's weird that she has to give that advice. I mean, right? Like if you're going to sign a contract, I mean, you want somebody to look over that contract. You should. I mean, I know a lot of people who go to work for Google and Amazon and Facebook and other places, and they get an employment agreement, and they have a lawyer look over it. Like, when you're talking real money, you get a lawyer to look over this stuff. That's just what you do. That's kind of like here's another like crazy bit of logic. You should save some money. Like you should have a savings account with money that you save inside of that savings account. It will earn you interest, which is money you get while you sleep. It's an amazing thing. You should totally do it. I know. I know. Totally. You're becoming a suit. You're totally becoming the establishment when you save money and get a lawyer to look over your contracts. But I don't. So there's this theory of mine. Again, it's just I think we assign a lot of different beliefs and attitudes of things that creators are doing or not doing. But I think there's this common rooted thread of just wanting to rebel. That there is romance and glory and magic in the rebellion. And that if you start to do things like, I don't know, market research or asking customers what they want or, looking to see whose comics sell more than others and then trying to figure out what makes them successful and pick up some of those tips and tricks for yourself, that you're somehow no longer an artist. You're not punk rock anymore. You're Maroon 5. That's and in fairness, nobody wants to be Maroon 5. But I think that one attitude, that one I need to rebel because if I rebel, then I am an artiste. I think that is the answer to so many of the things that we are confused by. As customers, as consumers, and that's why I use the example of that primer book. Like that book is not overly complicated of showing you the way for YA. It's a template for YA. And so when you see that, you're like, oh, and look, it was a reasonable book. It had very little marketing, but it seems to catch on. It's holding its numbers. It's it's not blowing it's no Rain and Telgemeier or anything close to it, but it's a solid little seller. As DC, we want to go out and we want to make 12 more of these books because we want to have a strong foothold in the old YA world. What should we do? Like, what should we try and copy? How do we want to build on this? I know let's do a story about Starfire's daughter. That seems like a good plan. Let's do a Elseworlds kind of gender bent Gotham High kind of thing. Let's do. Why would you ignore the success you have in your hand? Like you have something that worked. Why would you go off and do other things? Like go copy the thing that worked. There's no shame in that. Just clone that a few times. Get some more money in the bank. Get some more attention for your label. And then when you have more attention, then branch out a little bit. Experiment, dip your toe in some other water, see if you can get that going too. But when you're going right out the gate, and you have a success, don't punk rock on us. Just you need go for the Maroon 5 strategy. Copy what works. You don't, but it did. I feel like I don't know. This explains a lot because at times I've asked people like I think I did an earlier video on this like, hey, have you ever done a focus group on your comic? Have you ever come in with a little bit of a pitch deck of this story with some data around the markets you're going after and how you're doing it? And I always get this like PowerPoint. Okay, Dad. It's like, all right, well, sure. Here, have another beer. Let's have another beer. We'll steer this nice conversation over something that is way more gentle and easy for everybody to wrap their heads around. Like, hey, which interns are sleeping with the boss? Who wants to play that game for a while? That's a conversation going on for several hours. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, that's my crazy theory. Take it for what it's worth. I may be wrong. Maybe no one in the world absolutely thinks this way at all, and this has nothing to do with anything. But if they did, it would explain maybe a few things to me. Your mileage may vary. Let me know what you think. Good theory, bad theory, crap, nonsense. Are you living that punk rock life? Let me know in the comments below. What's your favorite punk rock band, by the way, or artist? Who are you? What do you like in there? Or are you so young you're like, punk rock? I have no idea what that is. Make us all feel old and say that. Anyway, like, subscribe, support the channel, whatever you want to do. Like twice, like 3 times. Hit that like button so many times that your YouTube gets angry with you and tells you you're too positive. You can do that. Thanks for listening.